I'm always thankful for any subscribers that we get. We have a ton of people that subscribe to the Affair Recovery Samuel's blog. We have a large number of people that are on the Samuel YouTube and Affair Recovery YouTube channel. So I'm always grateful for that. And you know, this kind of work, it's a little bit weird. Not everybody wants to post questions or comments, so I don't read into the success or failure of certain blogs if there's more comments on this one than that, because not everybody wants to comment and have their information out there, and I certainly get it. It's totally fine. But I do get questions, and when I feel like a question is pretty pervasive in the recovery world, I want to do everything I can to answer it. And someone asked me, you know, can you explain the pitfalls, the struggles, the challenges with forgiving your unfaithful spouse too soon? I think it's a very valid question, but I don't necessarily love the verbiage of, you know, can you forgive your spouse too soon? I prefer more the verbiage that says, can you try and move on too fast too soon? Can you try and get over it too fast or too soon? Because at some level, it's not necessarily a bad thing to forgive very soon, but I will tell you that at some real significant level, it's really hard to genuinely forgive very early because and it's relative to your situation, but there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of hurt. There's a lot of anguish. It takes a while to even connect with how much pain you're feeling, meaning you have to work through the layers of infidelity. And I promise you, as a betrayed spouse, there are layers. What you feel at 2 weeks may not be what you feel at 6 weeks. And if you add new information to the equation, what you felt at 2 weeks is nothing that compared to what you're going to feel at 6 or 8 weeks when there's a new D-Day or new information. So I really want to more hone in on the fact that, look, there's a lot of carnage and wreckage that you have to work through. To think that you're going to be at 2 weeks and be like, yep, I forgive him, and we're moving on down the road, I shudder at that. I'm always afraid when I hear someone, even at a month or so, say, yeah, I've forgiven him, and we're moving forward, and I kind of go, that concerns me, because I've wondered, and if you're an unfaithful, not because I want you to suffer, because that would mean that I should have suffered, or that I want to, you know, make you suffer when I've been right where you're at. No, it's about working through the layers of pain and trauma and hurt, and for the unfaithful, shame and confusion and self-deception and self-hatred or ambivalence. I mean, there's so much to work through. When I hear someone in a month kind of roll off with, yeah, we've forgiven each other and we're moving on down the road, I'm afraid for that couple. I genuinely am. Now, before you kind of attach yourself to that thought and run off with it, I will tell you that if you get the right help and if you do the right amount of work, that there's nothing wrong with making a decision early on, maybe a month or so, to say, yeah, I'm really forgiving them. I understand forgiveness. I have a good handle on it, and I'm willing to work through that. I think it's possible. I really do. But to that person that says, yeah, it's 30 days in and I have forgiven my spouse and we're off and running, my next really important question is, are you working through the layers of grief and pain and hurt, or are you just trying to hurry up and forget about it and move on down the road? You see, one of the biggest traps, I think, for a certain people group is early on to try and hurry up because you just want to put it behind you. You don't want to have to feel the hurt and pain. You don't want to have to get into the messy details. You don't want to have to really process the anger. You don't want to have to confront it. You kind of would rather live in denial and not have to piece through the agonizing hurt and trauma that you're feeling. But that is an enormous concern for me as well. If you're in such a hurry to kind of move on down the road and forget about it, I promise you, you are kind of self-imposing some blindness in your life that's going to prevent your unfaithful spouse from having to really work through, why did this happen? Why did I allow this to happen? What about my moral compass is broken? What are the justifications that I used? What is the deception that I fell into? How could I go against my vows? What is going on inside of me that has made me do this? And am I really going to just, like a light switch, turn off these feelings I have for the affair partner, or the addiction that I've been into for months or weeks or years, or the pornography addiction? I'm just going to turn that off like a light switch? I'm sorry, I don't buy into that, because I've been there, and you don't just turn it off. There's a whole big process to it. And if you're a betrayed spouse, to think that you're going to unpack this cute little box of hurt and pain and anger and rage and bitterness and confusion and childhood origin trauma as well, and that just a big box of trauma, and that you're going to kind of go, yeah, okay, good. Here's the little steps. It's nice. It's neat. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. Okay, I'm dealt with it. And then we box it up and then we put it away. I promise you, somewhere between 6 months to a year, that box that you put away is going to come back as a stick of dynamite, and it's going to erupt and explode in your marriage and in your recovery that you felt like you were doing so wonderfully at. Now, there is a small microcosm of people, and I think you'll know who you are as I get into this a little bit more, that are somewhat codependent, and you really don't even want to rock the boat, and you're a betrayed. You'd rather just kind of not talk about it, and you'd rather just almost kind of live in denial, or you feel like you can't bring it up to your spouse that's been unfaithful because they're a bully, and their anger, their rage, their hostility, their demeaning, demonstrative behavior kind of puts you down. Well, that's very difficult as well, because you are opening yourself up to a few things, which is resentment and bitterness that's kind of hidden below the surface, and that causes all kinds of health issues, not to mention the fact that I've talked to more people than I would like to tell you that felt that way as a betrayed. They felt demeaned, they felt like they couldn't express themselves, they just sucked down their bitterness and resentment, and it started to flourish, and they had their own affair. That happens more than you would believe. The data on it is off the chart on people in that component that eventually have their own affair down the road. So can you forgive too soon? Absolutely, from the perspective that if you just kind of stuff it down and you throw out this little quasi-prayer, mantra or prayer or kind of moment, but yet you really don't understand what forgiveness is, yes, you can. But if you genuinely have an understanding of forgiveness, and if you genuinely are able to process through the enormity of what's going on, and every situation is different, it's really more about, are you trying to hurry the process? Because there is a process to this recovery that you've got to go through, because, especially for the unfaithful, we've got to get at why it happened. We've got to find the root of it. We've got to navigate through the complexity of how do we pick up the pieces of our lives and move forward. And you can't hurry that. If you hurry it, your recovery will be faulty. It will be like an upside down triangle that is teeter-tottering every month, every week, and you can't make it that way in the long term. Finally, I've said a lot today, but I want to give you one disclaimer. Nowhere in this vlog or any of my other vlogs, but especially today, do I ever want you as an unfaithful to feel like I want your betrayed spouse to make you suffer. Absolutely not. It's really not about that. It's really about making sure you get down into the deep layers of why this has happened so that you can prevent it from happening ever again in the future, so that you can go deep enough into the repair work of your marriage so that you can have the marriage you never thought that you would be able to have after having the infidelity or the addiction come to light. It's not about shaming you. It's about going to the deep place and saying, you know what? Let's deal with what we need to deal with so that we can have the restoration both personally and maritally that we both so desperately want if we're going to give our marriage a shot.